guys, my name's Yvette. Welcome back to my channel. For this video, I thought I'd film my February reading wrap up, even though it's March and we're actually a couple days into March. But I'm gonna film it anyways because it's still early and February kind of just ended, so. Okay, so the first book I read, I actually don't have a physical copy of, but I read Mexican Gothic. It's a goth horror style type of book set in 1950s Mexico. And something I really enjoyed about this book was just the Mexican Gothic aesthetic. I feel like I could picture it so well in my head. And just visually, I think the descriptions in the book made it so much better. Okay, so this novel revolves around a main character named Noemi, who is visiting her cousin Catalina after receiving a very eerie and strange message from her, resulting in the whole family being kind of worried and concerned about her mental state. So Noemi goes and visits her cousin Catalina in this old British manor that's set atop of a old Mexican mining town. And the family that Catalina married into, which is why she's living in this British manor, is a very strange and odd family with very traditional views that border on problematic and racist. My personal favorite part of the book was whenever it talked about the topic of eugenics and this idea of inferior and superior races, and how Mexicans and being Mexican has always been deemed a inferior race. I think I just enjoyed the small topics of race that were in the book, because you can't really title a book Mexican anything and not bring up the Mexican experience. I'm gonna share a quote with you guys that I really liked in the book. To know a place, you must look at the land. There are ghosts, and then there are ghosts. The ones that wear bed sheets over their heads are much less terrifying than the ones left by the sins of our ancestors. I really like this quote because I feel like it calls attention to the deep-rooted nature of colonization and how there are people that are still benefiting from the sins of their ancestors. Meanwhile, there are people that are suffering because of those same sins. Even centuries later, I think it calls attention to the fact that you can't really escape the past, especially as people of color. So yeah, I really liked it. It was one of the first Gothic novels I've ever read, I think. I can't remember if I read any in the past before, but I really enjoyed it. I think it had eerie elements to it, but nothing too crazy, and I do recommend it. The next thing I read this month is the Raven Boys graphic novel. Shout out to Penguin Team for sending me this arc. Thank you so much. That was so cool of you guys, and I was so excited to receive it because one, I've always really liked graphic novels. I think they're so cute. And two, the Raven Boys was my favorite series in high school and growing up. It was one of my favorite series. If I had been able to get tattoos in high school, I would have the ley lines printed on my arm right now, or tatted on my arm right now, because that's how much I like the series. And I used to look up Raven Boys inspired tattoos all the time when I was younger, and I remember really wanting the 3 ley lines that intersect. So to have a series I really loved growing up be turned into a graphic novel, I just thought was such a cool concept. So yeah, I love this graphic novel. It's telling the same story as the original series, which is about a group of friends that are on a quest to find a dead Welsh king. The original series has so much magic and fun within it, and I think the graphic novel managed to capture that same essence so perfectly through these cute little pictures. Obviously, not all the scenes are in it. A lot of the internal dialogue is obviously missing since this is a graphic novel. The pictures did a really good job at capturing the characters' emotions, so you don't miss out on a lot. Also, obviously, read the Raven Cycle, the original series, before you try to read the graphic novel, because you just get so much more out of it if you already know what the story is about. And having all that extra information already really makes it feel like you're not missing anything from the graphic novel, like the whole story's already there. And that's how I felt reading it, and I really liked it, and I think it's so cute. And this comes out August 2025. I forgot the date. I'll put it on the screen, but that's when it comes out, and then you guys can have your own copies as well. Mine's in black and white though, because I have an arc. But I can only imagine how beautiful the color one is, because like the end pages I have colored and they're so beautiful in color. So this is going to be so beautiful. The next book I read is I Am the Cage by Alison Sweet Grant. I can't say I really enjoyed the book. I thought it was okay. I thought it was mediocre. At first I thought maybe it's because I don't reach for young adult that often, but I actually read 2 other young adult books this month and I thoroughly enjoyed both of those. So I just think this book wasn't really for me. And obviously that's just my opinion. A friend of mine actually read this too. She really enjoyed it, so despite what I'm about to say, don't take it to heart because you might pick this book up and you might like it way better than I did. So this book is about a girl. She's like 19. She's living in this very secluded town and she's living in a cabin all by herself. And we know that this was a purposeful decision. Like, she wants to be by herself. She wants to live this quiet life away from any sort of contact at all. But due to bad weather, there's actually like this snowstorm happening. She's kind of forced to interact with her closest neighbor, which is the sheriff of the town. The story takes place in 2 different timelines. The present timeline, which is where she's living in the cabin by herself, and then the past timeline. And the past timeline goes through her life as a young girl, and we kind of learn that she went through this operation when she was very young on her leg, and this kind of changed her life and her views on life. And the past timeline also kind of helps the reader understand why she ends up where she is now. Like, we're kind of peeling back the layers and finding out what happened in the past to make her who she is right now. I think it is a book about healing though. I think it's a book about learning to open yourself up to the world again, even though it has kicked you down time and time again, and just learning to find hope in the hopeless. Something I didn't like about this book though was I feel like it used so many like cliche references or just like overused phrases that I hear in YA so much. And reading this, I was like, again, like, we're still saying stuff like this, and it just kind of annoyed me. And that's why I didn't really connect with the story, and that's why I didn't really care about the plot all that much. It was just things like, at one point the sheriff asked her like, what are you so afraid of? And then her internal dialogue was like, me, I'm afraid of myself. And I was like, we can't keep doing this, bro. Like, we cannot keep doing this. Like, I'm so tired. How many times have I read something like that? It's just kind of annoying, and I'm tired of it, and I'm over it. And I know it's YA, but I've read so many YA books that don't overuse the same phrases. I've read so many YA books that are just original. And not that this book was even like that bad, I just didn't feel like there was anything super original about it. Obviously, if the story sounds interesting to you guys, you should pick it up. Maybe you'd like it a lot more than I did. This was also an ARC sent to me by Penguin Teen, so shout out to Penguin Teen. Thank you. This book released already February 18th, I believe. The next book I read this month was Girl, Woman, Other, and as the front blurb puts it, it's a symphony of Black womanhood. It covers multiple short stories that focus on Black women and their lives and their struggles and different things that were significant to each of them. It touches on topics of race, sexism, sexuality. Actually, one of the things I loved most about it was how much queer representation there was in this book. And it was just nice to see how many of the women were in touch with their sexuality, some more than others. Something I really enjoyed about the book was how each of the stories and each of the women kind of intersect with one another. And I just thought it was interesting how you can spend time with someone, even briefly, and your life is just so completely different from theirs. They're dealing with things and going through things that you genuinely have no clue about, and you couldn't possibly even guess is happening to them. My favorite story in the book was about a character named Morgan, a trans non-binary character. And I just really love seeing their transition and them learning and coming to terms with being this gender-free person and seeing them develop into a person that they themselves are fully accepting and proud of. That specific story just really touched me and I thought it was really beautiful. Anyways, read this book. It's very intelligently written and I would recommend it to anyone. Also, for you babies that hated normal people because there was no quotation marks, guess what? This book doesn't have quotation marks either. It's not a big deal. Grow up. Okay, just kidding, but I actually don't think it's a big deal when books don't have quotation marks. I think it's a very purposeful decision that really ties in with the book altogether. So don't let that dissuade you from reading it. just read it, please. Okay, and the last book I read this month is I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter. I really love this book. It's about a young girl trying to navigate her grief while also trying to navigate the expectations that come with being a Mexican daughter. I'm Mexican, and I can say that I truly did see myself in a lot of aspects of this character's life. I think the way being Mexican was portrayed was so perfectly done. I really appreciated anytime this book talked about mental health, because I feel like in the Mexican community or in the Latino community, mental health is often stigmatized, and it's not something that young Mexican kids grow up learning about. And it's just kind of refreshing to have that representation there and to have it done in a very delicate and healing manner. And I feel like a lot of young people could benefit from this book, especially if they're Mexican. I loved anytime there was any like little snippets of Spanish inside the book, because it was just written so perfectly in a way that anytime the main character's mom said anything, it was just like little things that I was like, my mom says the exact same thing in the exact same way. And I love reading a book where I know my culture is actually understood well and is written well. And yeah, I really love the book. I would recommend it to anybody, especially Mexicans, Latinos, especially people that come from immigrant families and households. So yeah, read the book. I really loved it, and I think you guys would like it too. It's very easy to read. I really enjoy the plot as well. I don't know if I said already, but the main character is dealing with the grief of losing her older sister and finding out that she might not have known her sister as well as she thought she did. So yeah, I think it's really good. Read it, and yeah. Okay, so that's it for all the books I read in February. I read a total of 5. One was a graphic novel though. But yeah, I read 5 things this month. I'm hoping to be locked in March as well. So yeah, if you guys have read any of these books, let me know. Maybe we can talk about them together. And if not, I would recommend you guys read some of the books that I've read this month, because I think they're really good and I think you guys would enjoy them as well. So yeah, that's my February wrap up. Thank you guys so much for listening. Love you guys. Bye.